There's a quiet thief that visits millions of homes every day, and most people never notice until it's too late. It doesn't kick down the door. It doesn't make a sound. It simply chips away at your strength, your energy, and your independence. 1 in 10 adults around the world live with chronic kidney disease, yet so many don't even realize their kidneys are struggling until the damage is already severe. These two small organs, each about the size of your fist, are the unsung heroes that filter your blood, keep your bones strong, and balance the very chemistry of life. But here's the shocking truth. Some of the habits you and I might call harmless, like pouring a little extra salt on dinner or holding in urine during a long drive, can slowly poison these vital organs. I'm Dr. Brian, and welcome to Channel Vital Science for Seniors. Today, we're going to uncover the everyday choices that can either protect your kidneys or silently destroy them. I once had a patient named Margaret, a retired teacher in her late 60s. She loved her soups and canned foods because they were quick and easy. What she didn't realize was that each bowl was carrying a hidden burden of salt that her kidneys had to wrestle with. Over time, this extra sodium was like pouring sand into the gears of a machine. Her blood vessels tightened, her blood pressure climbed, and her kidneys bore the strain. Studies have shown that when people consume more than 5 grams of salt a day, their risk of chronic kidney disease rises by as much as 70%. That's because sodium draws water, and too much water means your kidneys are forced to push harder, like a dam holding back a swollen river. The good news is Margaret turned things around. By cooking fresh meals at home, checking labels carefully, and seasoning with herbs instead of salt, her swelling eased and her blood pressure returned to safer levels. Small shifts like these truly can protect kidney health. There's a story that still lingers in my mind about a man named George, a jovial grandfather who enjoyed his evening drinks a little too much. At first, it was just 1 or 2 glasses of whiskey to relax the nerves. But slowly, those evenings stretched into habit, and that habit into harm. Alcohol may feel like a friend at the table, but to your kidneys, it can be a relentless enemy. Each sip dehydrates your body, forcing your kidneys to work overtime like a sponge that's been wrung dry. Alcohol also disrupts blood flow, damages delicate kidney tissues, and when paired with smoking, the risk of kidney disease multiplies up to 5-fold. I remember George telling me, "Doc, I thought my kidneys were just fine. I had no pain." That's the silent danger. It creeps in without warning. When he cut back, sticking to no more than 1 drink a day, his energy lifted and his lab numbers improved. Moderation isn't punishment. It's a lifeline to protect kidney function and safeguard the years ahead. When I first met Clara, she was 71 and struggling with constant fatigue. She admitted to loving her morning sweet rolls and afternoon sodas, thinking sugar was just a harmless indulgence. But inside her body, every spoonful was demanding more and more insulin until her cells stopped listening. That resistance slowly pushed her toward diabetes, and with it came rising blood pressure, two of the greatest villains for kidney health. Imagine your blood vessels as garden hoses. Sugar stiffens them, narrows them, and eventually they crack under the strain. A study in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that people who drank over 14 sugary beverages a week nearly doubled their risk of high blood pressure compared to moderate drinkers. Clara's creatinine levels were climbing, a sign her kidneys were losing ground. But when she replaced sodas with water, chose low-potassium foods like apples and cabbage instead of syrupy desserts, and embraced a balanced diet for kidney disease, her energy returned. She told me, "I never thought I'd feel this light again." Cutting back on sugar gave her kidneys a fighting chance. I'll never forget Robert, a retired mechanic who came to see me with swelling in his legs and a worrying rise in his creatinine levels. He wasn't a heavy drinker or a smoker, but he had lived for years with aching joints and back pain. To cope, he leaned on over-the-counter pain relievers, ibuprofen in the morning, naproxen at night, believing they were harmless because they were sold without a prescription. What he didn't know was that these medications, when used often, constrict the tiny blood vessels in the kidneys, cutting down the flow like squeezing a garden hose. Over time, the filtering units begin to falter, unable to clear waste effectively. A 2021 study showed that regular NSAID use for just a year can increase the risk of chronic kidney disease by 20%. Robert's story reminds us that short-term relief can bring long-term harm if we don't pause. When he worked with me to find safer alternatives, gentle stretching, physical therapy, and only occasional medication, his kidney function stabilized. The lesson is clear. Painkillers should never be a quiet daily habit. They should be a carefully guided tool. Think of your kidneys as the body's cleaning crew. They need plenty of water to rinse away the waste, just like a washing machine needs water to clean clothes. Without enough fluid, toxins begin to build up, and the filter clogs. I recall Maria, a 68-year-old who prided herself on staying busy, but often forgot to drink. She would rush through her day with barely a glass of water, telling herself that tea and coffee were good enough. One afternoon she came in dizzy, her blood test showing high creatinine, a signal her kidneys were straining. Even mild dehydration can reduce kidney function by up to 10%, and over time, that constant stress can tip into permanent damage. When Maria started carrying a water bottle and sipping throughout the day, her numbers improved and her energy returned. Most adults need about 3.5 liters of fluid daily from food and drink combined, though needs vary. Protecting kidney health can be as simple as listening to your body's thirst and honoring it with water. Late nights may seem harmless, but to your kidneys, they are like running a machine without ever giving it time to cool down. I remember Harold, a 72-year-old who spent many nights watching television until 2 a.m. He joked that he could sleep when he's gone, but his body was paying the price. The kidneys follow the body's natural clock, balancing filtration and repair during the night. Without sleep, stress hormones like cortisol flood the bloodstream, tightening vessels and raising blood pressure, slowly wearing down kidney tissue. A large study found that people who regularly slept less than 6 hours a night were about 40% more likely to develop chronic kidney disease. Harold's mornings were marked by swelling in his ankles and crushing fatigue, both signs his kidneys were struggling. When he finally committed to 7 hours of rest, his blood pressure softened, his creatinine steadied, and he said, "I didn't know sleep could be medicine." Protecting your kidneys may start not in the kitchen or the pharmacy, but in the quiet sanctuary of a good night's rest. One of my patients, Elaine, used to rely heavily on frozen dinners and packaged snacks. They were easy, cheap, and quick, but they carried a hidden cost. Each bite was packed with sodium, phosphorus, and unhealthy fats that quietly overworked her kidneys. Imagine pouring grit into a finely tuned engine. That's what processed foods do inside the body. Excess sodium pushed up her blood pressure, phosphorus strained her filtering units, and unhealthy oils fueled inflammation that scarred delicate kidney tissue. Research has shown that diets high in processed foods are linked to a 25% increase in chronic kidney disease risk. Elaine's lab work began to show rising creatinine, and her doctor warned her she might soon need a stricter diet for kidney disease. That frightened her. Together, we shifted her meals toward fresh vegetables, fruits low in potassium like berries and cabbage, and simple home-cooked dishes. Within months, she felt lighter, more energetic, and her kidney function stabilized. Processed foods may be convenient, but for aging kidneys, they are a slow poison best left on the shelf. There's a powerful myth that more protein is always better, and I saw the consequences of that in a man named Leonard. After retiring, he became devoted to bodybuilding, filling his plate with red meat at nearly every meal. At first, he felt strong, but soon fatigue crept in, and his lab work revealed rising creatinine. Here's the hidden truth. While moderate protein is safe for most, excessive amounts can overwhelm the kidneys. It's like dumping too many logs into a fireplace. The flames roar too hot, and eventually the chimney cracks under the strain. For those with even mild kidney disease, this excess can lead to acidosis, where the body struggles to balance its own chemistry. Studies have shown that heavy red meat consumption can raise the risk of chronic kidney disease by up to 40%. Leonard shifted to smaller portions, choosing more fish, beans, and low-potassium foods like cauliflower and rice. Soon, his energy improved, and his kidneys were no longer under siege. For older adults, protein should be a steady flame, not a raging fire. I remember a woman named Judith, a 74-year-old who came to me after her routine checkup, showed her kidney function was slipping. She had never struggled much with her weight or her diet, but she had smoked since her 20s. Cigarettes, she told me, were her old companions. What she didn't realize was that each puff carried thousands of toxic chemicals that constricted her blood vessels, starving her kidneys of the oxygen and nutrients they desperately needed. It was like trying to water a garden through a kinked hose. The flow was too weak to nourish the plants. Research shows smokers may have up to a 27% higher risk of chronic kidney disease, and the danger doesn't stop there. Smoking also raises the chance of kidney cancer more than threefold. Judith finally decided to quit after learning her rising creatinine was not just a number, but a warning bell. With support groups and gradual cutbacks, she reclaimed her breath and gave her kidneys relief. Smoking isn't just a lung issue, it is a direct threat to kidney survival. One of the most heartbreaking cases I encountered was a man in his early 60s named Daniel. He had battled with cocaine use for years, thinking it only hurt his heart and mind. What he never realized was how ruthlessly it was attacking his kidneys. Cocaine, heroin, ecstasy. These drugs act like thieves in the night, clamping down on blood vessels, choking off the flow that kidneys need to stay alive. In Daniel's case, his blood pressure soared, and his kidneys began to scar from the repeated assaults. A 2022 study confirmed what I saw in practice. Cocaine users face about a 40% higher risk of chronic kidney disease compared to non-users. With heroin, the dangers multiply. Contaminants like talc lodge in kidney tissue, and infections can spiral into sepsis. I watched Daniel struggle through dialysis, tethered to a machine whispering, "I never knew my kidneys would be the price." His story is a sobering reminder that drug abuse does not just steal years, it steals the very organs that keep us alive. Exercise is a wonderful gift to the body, but like medicine, the dose matters. I met Samuel, a 66-year-old who had taken up intense boot camp workouts after retirement. He pushed himself hard, proud that he could keep up with men half his age. But one morning he arrived in the emergency room with severe muscle pain and dark cola-colored urine. What happened was rhabdomyolysis, a condition where overworked muscles break down and release myoglobin, a protein that can clog the kidneys like sludge in a drain pipe. Normally, the kidneys filter small amounts without trouble, but too much overwhelms them, leading to injury and even failure. Samuel's creatinine spiked alarmingly, showing how close he came to permanent damage. Thankfully, with fluids and rest, his kidneys recovered. But he learned a hard truth. Fitness should strengthen, not punish. For older adults, brisk walking, swimming, or cycling provide the benefits without pushing the kidneys into crisis. The goal is longevity, not exhaustion. When Linda, a 70-year-old grandmother, came to see me, she carried a can of cola in her purse as if it were a comfort. She told me she drank at least 3 every day, believing it gave her energy. But the truth was that the sugar and phosphoric acid inside each can were quietly eroding her kidney health. High sugar intake can lead to kidney stones, while phosphoric acid disturbs the body's delicate acid balance, much like pouring vinegar into a water filter until it corrodes. Even diet sodas, which swap sugar for artificial sweeteners, have been linked to impaired kidney function. A recent 2023 study found that those who consumed 1 or more sugary sodas daily had a 23% higher risk of developing kidney stones. Linda's creatinine had begun to creep upward, a sign of strain. When she switched to water and herbal teas, she was astonished at how much lighter and more energetic she felt. Sometimes the most powerful way to protect kidney health is simply to put down the can. There was a gentleman named Charles, 73, who loved his coffee so much he proudly called himself a 4-cup man. He believed it kept him sharp and lively, but gradually he noticed frequent trips to the bathroom, palpitations, and creeping blood pressure numbers. What he didn't realize was that his kidneys were paying the price. Caffeine, while safe in moderation, forces the kidneys to work harder to filter it out and acts as a diuretic, pulling water out of the body like wringing out a sponge. Too much leads to dehydration, which only adds more stress. One study found that people consuming more than 400 milligrams of caffeine daily, roughly 4 cups of coffee, had an 18% higher risk of kidney dysfunction. Charles's rising creatinine was an early alarm bell. When he cut his intake in half and balanced his mornings with water, his pressure eased and his energy steadied. Protecting kidney function doesn't mean abandoning coffee, but rather treating it as a friend best enjoyed in moderation. I recall a woman named Esther in her late 60s who often told me she was too busy to stop for the bathroom. She would hold her urine through long car rides or shopping trips, thinking it was just an inconvenience. Over the years, this habit began to take a toll. Holding urine is like keeping a balloon stretched to its limit. The pressure weakens the bladder walls and creates the perfect breeding ground for bacteria. Esther began experiencing recurrent urinary tract infections, and eventually her kidneys felt the impact. Studies show that people who frequently delay urination may be over 3 times more likely to develop UTIs, and chronic infections can scar kidney tissue. One test revealed tiny stones forming in Esther's kidneys, a painful warning that the filter system was under siege. When she finally made the commitment to listen to her body and take timely bathroom breaks, her infection subsided and her kidneys were spared further harm. Sometimes protecting kidney health is as simple as giving yourself permission to pause. When I first met Thomas, a 69-year-old retired accountant, he confessed that most of his days were spent sitting in his recliner, watching television or reading the paper. He wasn't overeating or smoking, yet his lab tests revealed rising blood pressure and creeping creatinine. What was happening inside his body was a silent storm. Long hours of sitting slow the metabolism, encourage weight gain, and stir up inflammation that quietly damages kidney tissue. A 2023 study showed that people who remain sedentary for much of the day may face a 27% higher risk of chronic kidney disease. Thomas didn't need a marathon, he needed movement. We started with short walks after meals and gentle cycling on a stationary bike. Within months, his energy lifted, his blood sugar improved, and his kidneys found relief. Protecting kidney health isn't about pushing limits. It's about honoring the body with steady, consistent activity that keeps blood flowing and life vibrant. As we've journeyed through these hidden habits, I hope you see that kidney health isn't shaped by one grand decision, but by the quiet choices we make every day. Every glass of water, every home-cooked meal, every night of restful sleep becomes a gift to your kidneys, a promise of strength and independence in the years ahead. I've walked beside many patients who thought it was too late, only to watch them reclaim their health with small, steady steps. Remember, even if your creatinine has risen or you've been told you need a special diet for kidney disease, change is possible. Your kidneys are resilient, and so are you. Protecting them means protecting your freedom to live fully, to travel, to laugh with loved ones, to enjoy the life you've built. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone you care about, and join me here again at Vital Science for Seniors.